Good afternoon, everybody who's joining us from Sub-Saharan Africa, and good morning to everybody joining us from the UK. My name is Silvia Tonui, and I'll be the host for today's Fashion Friday session. And I'm happy to see all of you here. Just some housekeeping rules. Please stay on mute. If you have any questions for any of the panelists, please type it in the chat box, and I'll be able to read the questions. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's also joining us on the British Council and Trio Media Kenya Facebook pages and Instagram Live. I'm really happy to have all of you here. Good afternoon and welcome to the Creative DNA Fashion Fridays. It's a pleasure to have you joining us from across Africa, the UK, and the wider global creative community for this important conversation. Being a designer is more than just designing. I'll just give you a quick background about the Creative DNA program. Creative DNA is a British Council program designed to support fashion businesses to develop the skills, knowledge, networks, and market access needed to grow sustainably within both local and international fashion systems. Since launching in Kenya in 2019, Creative DNA has evolved from a national fashion business incubation program into a Pan-African platform for creative enterprise development. We're now reaching designers across Uganda, Senegal, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, Ghana, and of course, Kenya. And through training and mentorship and showcasing, we also have international delegations where I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Avis at the Africa Fashion Week London, and also Danai from Zimbabwe. We've also had delegations, the pleasure of taking delegations to Canex in Cairo, Dakar, Senegal, Africa Fashion Week London, and London Fashion Week. Creative DNA is helping position African fashion as a serious economic sector and a professional pathway for young people. We are in the process of developing something very important to the program, the Creative DNA Alumni Database. So everywhere we go, we get asked where can people get the fantastic designs of the Creative DNA alumni. So we're in the process of developing a Creative DNA Alumni Database. And as a program grows across the continent, we want to develop a living platform that will showcase fashion entrepreneurs who have gone through the Creative DNA program from Sub-Saharan Africa and the UK. And we're hoping that this will then, in turn, connect designers to buyers, develop collaborations, residencies, and other global opportunities. So without further ado, we'll jump right in. Today's Fashion Friday conversation is a very important one, and we're joined by Dr. Avis Charles, and I'll let them introduce themselves after this. Rasheeda Nalumoso, who's joining us from Uganda, from the British Council, and Danai Madondo joining us from Zimbabwe. So as you can see, it's a very Pan-African panel, and I'm really excited. So we'll jump right in, and I think we'll start with Rasheeda. Please introduce yourself and what you do. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sylvia. And hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. And it's so great to be back with our Fashion Fridays. My name is Rasheeda Nalumoso. I'm the Head of Arts and Creative Economy Lead for the British Council's Africa Arts Programme, working across our creative economy portfolio based in Kampala, Uganda, building collaborations, partnerships, cultural exchange, and one of the things I love, working across our Creative DNA programme, which has really grown from strength to strength. My career as a cultural strategist, working collaboratively with partners, artists, organizations, includes devising large, complex international cultural programs and projects across the creative industries. I first got into the arts sector because I love storytelling. Storytelling is a vital part of how we begin to understand each other and build connections, networks, realize events, and imagine new possibilities. I produced the Kla Art Festival in Kampala in 2018, which was a really wonderful citywide public art festival. And there was a quote that struck me about the infrastructure of trade. The quote appeared in Art Africa in 2017, and it commented that the infrastructure of trade is also a geography of imagination and invention, which is constantly reshaped to redefine one's sense of place. When I produced the festival, we were guided by this quote as a reflective curatorial research to share Kampala City with the wider public and artists' work with each other. And I reflect on that quote now as my work as an ecosystem builder and thinking about the creative economy and storytelling. And storytelling has ever been an economic enterprise as much as a creative one. I am razor sharp focused on connecting capital to enterprise and productive opportunities to scale work that I believe can go global. And that's really been critical to our Creative DNA program, and a pleasure to work with Silvia as we've grown the program from strength to strength, from Kenya to the countries to date that we're now present in this continent. The creative economy of Africa is a narrative that we continually build, and we cannot build it if we cannot dream what we want to see. And that was a case in point for Clark Art Festival when we produced it. The site of the city was Kampala was the site of the city, and that was where public space is contested as much as private space. And the right for public performance was always a delicate act of negotiation. And I always think about this, even as I work with fashion designers, and I get asked a lot about what does it take to be afforded an international opportunity with the British Council's Creative DNA program. And this topic of conversation that we're here to discuss of being a designer is more than just designing. It's so important. And I'm so inspired by the designers who have really embraced creative DNA and recognizing how integral storytelling is to our heritage in the continent. The stories that we tell, our heritage and clothing and costume and narrative building, to believe that this business is a viable enterprise of economic growth, which it is in the continent, is continually something that inspires me. And I'm here as part of a panel who I know are also invested in that, very importantly, as an endeavor of fashion generally in terms of storytelling and building businesses. Yeah, I'll pause there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasheeda. And that's I'm already excited to speak about storytelling, especially because we've worked together. And whenever I think of you as a creative economy champion. So I'm really excited to have you here. Dr. Avis, I had the pleasure of meeting you at Africa Fashion Week London, and I'm really impressed about your work. And I think I'll do it a disservice if I introduce you. So I want to hear from you about your work in the fashion space and yourself as well as a fashion champion as well.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and guests of Creative DNA. It's my sincere pleasure to be in conversation with you today. I'm always amazed at the glowing introductions that I receive before starting a presentation. It kind of sounds as if I've accomplished so much in my heart. I feel as if I haven't done enough. I believe this is because the fashion industry never stands still and keeps evolving constantly at a pace that is really hard to keep up with. There's no better example of this than here within Creative DNA and all of you established and emerging creatives. All of those associated with this amazing initiative believe and understand the importance of recognizing the African diaspora's fashion excellence on an international stage. Our cultures, our traditions, and our identities have always created what today is called couture, but making exquisite clothing to order and dressing well is sincerely part of our DNA. My love for beautifully made clothes and being sartorially elegant came from my amazing parents, who were invited to the United Kingdom from Jamaica many years ago. My mother, a teacher and an incredible seamstress, and my father, a bespoke tailor. They truly laid the foundations of the couturier and entrepreneur that I am today. My journey into couture started over 50 years ago with my mother enrolling me at London College of Fashion, ensuring that my achieving academic qualifications, which are necessary for a young Black girl wanting to work in the fashion industry that did not recognise the brilliance of our talent. My mum was also aware that becoming an apprentice at one of the best couture houses in London was essential to gain hands-on knowledge for a successful career in luxury fashion. To this day, I have no idea how my mother in 1970 managed to find Susan Small, the couture house who designed the bespoke outfits for females of the royal family. Thus, at the age of 17, I was meeting princesses, duchesses, and high-profile celebrities, whilst learning the craft of designing, styling, fitting exquisite clothes. My company, Avis Ellis-Charles Associates, has continued along the same trajectory by being innovative and varied, ensuring a diverse portfolio of skills, enabling business excellence and continuity. As an award-winning fashion specialist with decades in the fashion industry and a worldwide reputation for creative design and development through my company, I provide strategic vision, insight, and mentoring to international fashion houses, organizations, global academic institutions, blending commercial skills with deep domain knowledge of historical, traditional, and cultural fashion methodologies. As a business, we need to focus on raising our game consistently by being on top of what is happening in the industry, putting the designer or the brand first without compromising our integrity, and whilst doing this, maintaining mutual respect continuously. Whether it's developing design brands like Victoria Beckham, Vivienne Westwood, and globally emerging luxury brands, or collaborating with the United Nations, the World Bank, or other non-governmental organizations, creating routes to market for artisans, exclusive products, or as an academic researcher validating fashion curriculums to enable the inclusion of the African diaspora's history into the global fashion narrative. My mantra is always to strive to be the best and to be open to stepping out of my comfort zone. And today, I wish exactly the same for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Avis. And would you like to share your screen now or a bit later?
I'll probably save it a bit later because it seems to have disappeared.
That's all right. That's fine. Thank you, Dr. Avis. And we'll get back to you in a bit. But Danai Madondo, all the way from Zimbabwe, kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you, Silvia, for the invitation. It's truly a pleasure to be here sitting alongside Rasheeda, yourself, as well as Dr. Avis, people that are doing such exceptional work. So a brief intro to myself. I'm Danai Madondo. I am based in Harare, Zimbabwe. I'm a multidisciplinary fashion practitioner whose work focuses on ethical craftsmanship. I'm also the creative director of an independent fashion label called House of Stone. And what we do is we merge heritage with contemporary design. We use fashion as a vehicle to tell nuanced, contemporary, and dynamic African narratives. On top of that, I'm also a self-taught textile artist due to COVID. My work engages with recycling used textile material to transform them into tactile textile pieces with a sensory experience, as well as a cultural curator. I think earlier Silvia had mentioned how all of us are somewhat connected to the Creative DNA program in one way or the other. And I'm actually a Creative DNA Africa alumni. And today I also sit as the Creative DNA Zimbabwe delivery partner, which I am truly excited and passionate about to be able to hold this position, because a lot of my journey has to do with telling the Zimbabwean story. I've had the privilege of living outside of Zimbabwe, in Ghana, Australia, South Africa, plus. And I think upon returning and starting my brand, I realized that there wasn't a singular space where you could actually access locally made goods. So I actually opened up a retail space called Isu Collections, which means us collections. Even when you look at the name of my brand, House of Stone, when translated, it means Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe, House of Stone. So I'm really passionate about Zimbabwe. I'm passionate about putting the Zimbabwean story out there through design specifically. And ultimately, I feel like my role is actually to contribute towards helping to develop our local industry, for us to tell our authentic stories and to share those authentic stories to the world, because the world is curious. They don't know anything about us outside of a newspaper or something that you see on CNN, and oftentimes it's quite negative. But there's a lot of beauty, there's a lot of culture, there's a lot of rich history that exists within Zimbabwe. And I think in my pursuit to also understand myself as an individual, this is how I started to construct my stories when it came to the fashion narratives that I created, when it came to the concepts and the way I even styled my garments. It was all about me trying to discover who I was, where I came from, what was beautiful about us. And I think I'll share more in my presentation as to my design philosophy, which is rooted in cloth as a portal, which is one of my core philosophies today. I have a lot of hashtags that accompany House of Stone, such as the intersection of fantasy and reality. And I'll get into depth as to why I use such terminology, even terminology such as the conscious wanderer. It all boils back to who I am as a storyteller. And I think it's a great opportunity for me to share this philosophy, and hopefully the philosophy will inspire you when it comes to you constructing your own unique, authentic African narrative and signature. So thank you so much, Silvia. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Danai. And when we do our program at Creative DNA across the continent, we really emphasize storytelling, and I think all three of you are such fantastic storytellers, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about your business. Okay, so we'll jump right in and we'll start with you, Dr. Avis. Drawing on your extensive work across global institutions, artisanship programs, and cultural exhibition, what does global readiness really mean for African brands? I know you mentioned that you have heritage spanning from Jamaica, and I think sometimes there are similarities, especially because we are people of color. And now that you work in the UK, you could maybe tell us about what what does global readiness really mean for African designers beyond the aesthetics, and it's very important, I feel, that designers embed cultural relevance and inclusion into their strategy. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. What does that really mean, global readiness?
I think global readiness is really about having the confidence in what you're actually doing and believe in it as well. Fashion, and as the title says, it's not just being a designer. I think it's really having an understanding how your garment is actually constructed. I certainly know that one of the things that has been great for me as an individual, but also as a business, is having the knowledge of pattern cutting and also being able to sew, which is something that is within us anyway. I think it's also realizing that fashion is truly a business. It employs a lot of the world's population. And so the readiness is about understanding and knowing that your product is actually ready to go to market. So knowing where your fabrics are coming from, being able to repeat the order, and having consistency in regards to the way your collection actually looks, the way it's actually made, delivery, and the logistics.
Thank you, Dr. Avis. And when it comes to storytelling, sorry, Rashid, Danai will go to you next. And your work uses fashion as a powerful medium for cultural storytelling and sustainability, and you've just mentioned that. And how can designers balance deeply local, cultural-rooted narratives with the expectations of international markets without diluting their identity? Because, a lot of young designers say, I want to stick to my identity, but then still appeal to an international audience. And I think you've done this very well with your brand, House of Stone. So if you could maybe tell us a bit, how do people remain rooted but still appeal to their audiences?
How I have engaged with that particular question through my design work at House of Stone is authenticity. It comes back also to leaning into your interests of what is within your immediate space. So how I've often engaged with the design is, if you were actually to look at my pieces as separate pieces, they're very understated, they're very commercial, they're very global. One would actually say they're borderline boring, but it's the way in which I package them. I think not many people know this, but my background is actually in marketing. So once you're a marketer, you're automatically a storyteller. You know that what you're selling is not a garment. You're selling an experience that a person could potentially experience by engaging, one, buying your product and wearing it. The work has been done in advance prior to them even buying that product. So I often say that most designers, at the core of everything, we're all marketers, we're all storytellers, because we want our wearers to feel a certain way. There's a reason why we think Gucci, Dolce Gabbana, Louis Vuitton, All White, all these brands relate to a certain individual. They've already sold an idea, they've sold an experience, and that's what I do. When I engage with my culture, I always ask them the question is, how can I make the mundane extraordinary? So, for
Sorry, Danai.
example,
Let's just take a break. Somebody's unmuted.
okay.
Okay,
Okay, sure.
go ahead.
So I often ask myself the question, how can I take the mundane, everyday African object or even experience and make it extraordinary? And so I did that specifically, and I continue to do it, but I did it specifically with one of my first collection called Ode to Ascana, where I used bingo baskets and translated them into high fashion hats, where I took traditional dancer shakers and then transformed them into like neck pieces for the styling. And this is something that I often do with my work, because I'm also looking for the African, for the Zimbabwean. How can we take everyday objects that we take for granted and make it high fashion? And then also, who gets to define what is high fashion? So I feel like I'm sort of grappling and fighting with certain concepts within fashion, and House of Stone enables me, or at least capacitates me, to have that conversation. That's why for me, it is commercial, but beyond it being commercial, it is in fact a dialogue that is actually wanting to discuss certain elements within the fashion world that were once exclusive, but now we're trying to make it more inclusive, where more voices, more identities, more versions of expression of what Africa is are expanding. Because when you look at African design, someone would say, you don't fit the mold. But my angle is often I look at it from a spiritual lens. And as Zimbabweans, we're extremely spiritual individuals with different spiritual groups within Zimbabwe. And I think one of the largest spiritual groups that we have are Apostori. And funnily enough, I've never mentioned this before, but my color palette actually comes from them. And they wear very like light shades, neutral tones. It's very calm and peaceful. And you often find when people engage with my work, they sense essence of spirituality, lightness, and that's actually quite intentional. So when I look at culture, sometimes I'm also looking at the intangible, something that you can't actually touch, but how can you make someone experience and feel it through the visuals when they see them? So I feel like I'm a very curious creative, and that curiosity that I have, that experimentation element that I have, is ultimately what has opened doors for me and has made me, to some extent, stand out. Because to imagine some of the platforms that I've found myself on from little old Zimbabwe, nobody's really looking for Zimbabwe, right? But I've been on exceptional platforms and I've been identified just due to me leaning into my own curiosities about where I come from.
Wow, Danai, thank you. And just to mention, and I'm glad you mentioned this, I think I also wear very muted colors sometimes. And actually, now that you mention it, I'm from Kenya, from the Kalenjin tribe. And historically, we've worn browns and very light browns and grays and I think there's this perception that African colors should be very bold and very similar to wax print, very busy, but actually we really can't be boxed in, I believe. And you know, it's really interesting to hear that Zimbabwe and Kenya can have those similarities. So thank you so much. And I have to say, when I had the pleasure of attending Creative Economy Week in Zimbabwe, and the launch of Creative DNA in Zimbabwe last year. And I was just very impressed by the number of designers that are there. I think sometimes part of storytelling and our responsibility as Africans is to tell our own African stories, because when you go online, they're very derogatory hashtags like "It's Giving Zimbabwe," but then when you actually get there and you see the amount of talent that is in Zimbabwe, I think it's very important that Zimbabweans tell their own stories, so that we can shift these very negative stereotypes that come out of Africa. But thank you very much, Danai.
We've reclaimed that statement. When you
I'm
hear "It's
glad.
Giving Zimbabwe," it's now positive.
I'm glad. I'm glad. And I can see all the Zimbabweans putting laughing emojis. But yeah, I was very impressed by Harare and the artists that I met in Zimbabwe. Tatenda, thank you. Okay, so I see very many creative DNA alumni here and some who are on the program right now in different countries. So I know they're going to listen to Rasheeda very carefully, because the number one question is, how do I get onto these international delegations and opportunities that British Council has? And this is the beauty of Creative DNA, that, beyond the business incubator, there are numerous opportunities. There are grant opportunities, there are opportunities for collaborations, opportunities for mentorships in the UK and Sub-Saharan Africa. There are opportunities for showcasing at international fashion fairs, trade fairs, and fashion weeks. So Rasheeda, on to you. From your perspective at the British Council, when selecting designers to participate in international showcasing opportunities, festivals, or delegations, what key qualities, levels of readiness, and strategic considerations do you look for to ensure long-term impact rather than one-off exposure?
Thank you, Silvia. Great question. I'm really, really loving this conversation, by the way. It's so soul nourishing. Yeah. So I think first, keeping to the importance of storytelling, I had wanted to comment again how important it is to tell the narratives from the continent of Africa, and how through that narrative storytelling, we lead the change. And that is also beyond the storytelling. To make these stories land, it involves putting in the infrastructure work, such as a program like CDNA, to close the loop and ensure business readiness meets access to market opportunities, to showcase, to understand your own ecosystem, connect to your peers across the continent and the global market. Artists and designers who want to access our opportunities, the strongest ones that I reflect on are, coming back again to the importance of storytelling, a designer who has a complete grasp on the story that they want to tell really lands off the page. The art of fashion is how you encapsulate me as you walk down the runway. And as Danai just beautifully spoke to, it's everything, that work has already been done. And then that moment of being received is quite an experience. And they say that a fashion, like fashion weeks across the globe, are that moment of the art of fashion. But we know how much business goes into these fashion weeks and the infrastructure to support them and just to get there. So yeah, I'll speak to specifically more on some advice for designers who are interested in the global opportunities that British Council can afford. And it's really a privilege to work for an organization with reach across the world, to be able to support opportunities where sometimes it might just be as simple as an introduction, because we know that networks are vital in this ecosystem of fashion, as with all sectors. So whether it's brokering introductions, whether it's designing residencies where you can exchange and meet other designers, or have an incubator or accelerator to really spend time on refining the art that you want to offer to the world, the programs that we do with great intention are always trying to be responsive to the ecosystems of where we work. And it's not going to be exactly the same around the world. Our CDNA program in Uganda is very, very distinctive. It has a lot of designers who are focused on apparel, jewelry. Some wonderful brass jewelry designers have come through our program. And that really reflects where women are at in the sector in fashion as well, which is also a shout out to women in fashion and opportunities to be gender transformative, because we know that women make up the majority of the fashion world globally, but are you represented as designers as much as there is still a disparity there? So how do we support that? Yeah, I think, so in terms of key advice, I had wanted to share some things about what happens when when I'm looking at an application. And I think it's really I think I had wanted to just comment on, the strongest proposals are about telling a full story. They move beyond the great idea, the what, and the plan, the how, to articulate the essential why. Why this, why now, why here, why you? And this why is supported by evidence of need, context, and genuine purpose. It's the core that makes a project not just interesting, but necessary. So I think designers who've understood how to connect to that, it really sings as an application when you come across it. And connecting to that what and how, and a powerfully evidenced why, your work shines through in a different kind of light. I've been on many jury panels, which also, we're all learning, and I am not also someone who's a fashion expert. I am quite proudly a multidisciplinary art specialist. I love fashion. I love festivals. I love filmmaking. I actively participate as an art consumer. And I like listening to others. And when I've been on jury panels, I also learn a lot around reflecting on how difficult it is, the business of fashion. And I don't want to dishearten also designers. And part of acknowledging the sector that we're in, you get a lot of rejections, and that is and knockbacks. And that is not easy for anyone. But the consideration of, like, when I reflect on being in jury panels, which are very consciously aware of that, how important that is, as we know, every individual is considered. And for our CDNA call outs, we really do take the time to discuss and understand and really see each designer in their full spectrum. And I think when you do that we hold our processes with full transparency of a jury panel who have already, individually, you kind of collate your thoughts, but then you meet for a discussion and a dialogue. And that is a jury of international peers, partners of the British Council, individuals who might be fashion designers in their own right. And I reflect on that process also as something that is quite critical, because somebody else's reflection on an individual's application shines light that maybe I hadn't perceived about a particular applicant, and maybe a little bit more work that might be needed to be done before this opportunity is the right one for them. Or maybe actually this opportunity is right for this designer right now, and that is why we need to afford to make sure that they get there. And I think that's also critical. So it's not just about crafting the right words on a page. And I think that is also something that sometimes people might perceive, oh, this opportunity is not for me. British Council is only for a certain group of type of designer. And I want to encourage everybody who's joining on the call, and for any alumni of CDNA, it's really that's not the case. And being able to have a wide network of partners and creatives and professionals in the sector, somebody like Dr. Avis, who I had the pleasure to meet at Africa Fashion Week London, Denai herself, who's come through our program as a designer and is now leading our whole program in Zimbabwe. This is fantastic projection of growth that I think shows the way I want to work, and is a reflection of values that I think CDNA and the British Council's Africa Arts Programme really has actually, as it does justice to working equitably in an ecosystem that we still need a lot of work to do about telling new stories from the continent. So it was a really proud moment of having such a Pan-African showcase of designers at Africa Fashion Week London last year, by the way. And without revealing too much, I'm really excited about Africa Fashion Week London this year. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rasheeda, I think beyond even the storytelling, of course, quality is such an important thing, and I think Dr. Has mentioned that, and maybe she'll talk about that. But I do you want to speak a bit about the importance of residencies, just in terms of improving our crafts, our storytelling, and our quality? And we do have a residency coming up. Do you want to speak about that a bit?
Sure. Yeah, I've always been a big fan of residencies. I've always understood that for a creative, a residency gives you time and space, critical reflection, a little bit of opportunity to have a reprieve, and rethink, no matter where you are in your creative practice. And I think you're never too experienced as an artist, as a fashion designer, to look out for opportunities that a residency can afford. And I think they're critical to the ecosystem, actually. We need residencies to re-engage with ourselves, with our practice, and to check in on them. So I always say for practitioners, do look out for residencies, because at any moment they could be a trajectory that is a new impetus for your career. It's like visiting a new space and just seeing a new perspective even on your own practice. And so the opportunity to do international exchange is a huge privilege when you can build that into residencies such as CDNA and the new partnership that we have for Creative DNA and Studio Smithfield, which is a hugely exciting partnership and coming together of the British Council project in London, who are renovating the opportunity of access to space for London designers who are thriving, when we know that London as a city, artists are being pushed out, and how important it is for a company like Project to have realized we can give a new home to artists, and time and space to house young and emerging designers. And then the Paul Smiths Foundation, which is a charity that works to support amazing, talented designers. And so this project of coming together as three organizations, we have curated a new residency which will involve international exchange between UK-based designers and those in the continent as part of our CDNA program, with the first on-the-ground cultural exchange moment in Ethiopia this March with our partner Avis Ellis-Charles, who've been leading Creative DNA for the past few years. And integral to that design of the residency was the fact that it involves international exchange. It's about experiencing each other's spaces, experiencing the ecosystem of heritage within Ethiopia, and understanding that lineage of history and culture and what that means for contemporary fashion now and innovation now. And then to re-meet in the UK within an opportunity of mentorship and continual engagement. So yeah, the careful planning, curation, residencies, there's a lot of, as a team, in terms, a lot of thinking goes into important critical thinking, I think, to design an effective residency, which I've taken pleasure in working with colleagues and partners, and critical conversations around how we can make sure that the designers who participate get the most of it. And so everybody's statement of intent also, I think that made the difference. So as part of the submission process to apply for the residency, we asked all designers to submit, and I really like this phrase, which I hadn't quite, I mean, I think I'd heard of, but maybe we only more adopted recently. And I think I'd like to adopt it in future for residency opportunities, because just thinking about that statement of intent, like, what do you want to get out of this residency opportunity? And so the statements of intent that really were the strongest were from the designers who felt that were able to share that story of how this residency would meet them where they are now, and how that it links to the story that they're currently telling within their brand, and how they would like to grow through the new opportunity that the residency would give, because every residency is that opportunity for something new, which is always so exciting.
Thank you, Rasheeda. And I'll just pose one last question to all three of you. And while you're thinking about what you'd like to say, I'm seeing very interesting conversations in the chat. So I'll just go quickly there. But then just to the three of you, Rasheeda, Danai, and Dr. Avis, showcasing is very important and sometimes costly as well for a lot of fashion designers. So just in order to make the most of showcasing opportunities and for Creative DNA, access to market opportunities are very important for us because we all want to build sustainable businesses, businesses that we can pass on to the next generation. And for that to happen, we have to sell and we have to make money. So for showcasing opportunities and access to market opportunities, if each of you could tell me the top two things that designers should do before, during, and after these international and sub-Saharan and local opportunities to translate visibility into real market access, partnerships, and sustainable growth. So before we get there, we'll start with Dr. Avis and then Danai and then Rasheeda. But I just want to quickly read some very important, it's really encouraging to see all of you here. And Creative Resilience International, thanks for joining us. You're saying cheers for this. I've been waiting all week for this. We've also been waiting, and we're really happy to have you here. Andrew, okay. Andrew, I hope you can hear us now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Michelle from Zimbabwe, beautiful panel. Who would have thought? I'm sure you were responding to something. Thank you so much. Tatenda, I can see you. Michelle, I can see you as well. Martin, thank you so much. Martin Roberts is actually the founder of Fashion Scout London and the delivery partner for Creative DNA Kenya since 2019. So Martin, I'm really happy to see you here. And we're hoping that we'll have you on one of the panels that are coming. We have another 4 Fashion Friday conversations coming up, and we'll keep posting them. So please be on the lookout. B. Arthur, I love the idea that everyday materials can be transformed into high fashion, that creative alchemy is powerful. I love it. But when we look at brands like Gucci, they're not selling pret-a-porter. They are selling decades of cultural construction reinforced through film, music, celebrity culture, and storytelling. That aura was built intentionally over a long period. I agree. In Africa, we have not invested enough in building that same cultural ecosystem around our own brands. And I hope that programs like Creative DNA will spur those conversations on. Thank you so much, B. Arthur. That's a really amazing summary. And then Lisa, nice to see you. Most sub-Saharan African cultures wore skins and bark, so colors were shades of brown. Colors were more prevalent with textile weaving cultures like the Swahilis on the East African coast, I'm guessing, and cultures on the West African coast. The Swahilis also ran global trade across the Indian Ocean for thousands of years and had access to Asian textiles and colors. I guess this was a response to Danai. Thank you so much, Lisa. Yvonne, Martin again, Anne-Marie from Africa Fashion Week London. I can't wait to see the new cohort and what they will bring. Thank you so much. Okay, so if you have any other questions or comments, please post them on the chat box. But we'll start with you, Dr. Avis. If you can tell us your top 2 before, during, and after showcasing opportunities and international or local access to market opportunities.
I think number 1 is actually knowing who your target market is. What is your customer profile? Because if you have no idea of who you're actually supposed to be selling to, it means you're working in a void. So I think that's one of the things that is really important to understand. I think also in regards to whether you're doing direct to consumer or whether you're selling through an actual store is understanding what your price points are and what the competition is doing, because there is always some kind of competition. What is your point of difference? What makes you different from everybody else? And this is where the culture comes in, because nobody can do it better than you can. Because even though I've been in the industry a long time, there is no way that I could possibly produce something designed as well as what Danai does, because it's her culture. She understands it. And vice versa when it comes to either doing something that's British or Jamaican. So I think it's a way of understanding what your market is, who you are selling to, getting your price point actually right, and then how you can actually get it to that customer as well. Again, it's back to the logistics, but really important to understand your pricing first, because otherwise you end up underselling yourselves. It's also including what the marketing costs are. Everything has to go into that. Otherwise, you'll never stay in business. And I think it's one of the things that, as people within the diaspora, is that we undersell. Sometimes we maybe do not believe how absolutely brilliant we are. And excellence is key. And we have that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Avis. And our fashion designers that attended Africa Fashion Week London last year had the absolute honor and pleasure of having one-on-one sessions with Dr. Avis. And I'll tell you, a lot of them actually changed their pricing once they had the session with you. So I completely agree on the underselling. And later that evening when we went back to the hotel, a lot of them were like, oh, I've really marked up my price. I don't know if people will buy. And then when we got to Africa Fashion Week London, a lot of them almost sold out. So thank you for that, Dr. Avis. And I completely agree that we have to get our pricing right. We can't be underselling. We have to believe in our craft as Africa fashion designers. So thank you for that. Danai?
I actually wish we were having this discussion before I went to Creative DNA Africa in London, because I think one of the things I would have loved someone to tell me at the time would be research buyers, research boutiques that fit into your brand aesthetic and your price point, as Dr. Avis just mentioned. I think it's really important to do some pre-research on potential boutiques, retail spaces that you feel your product would work in, to do reach out emails to say, I'm going to be in London, Cairo, wherever between these dates for this activity. Could we potentially link up, maybe come through and see my product? You'd be surprised with how many people would actually show interest in your work and actually come through to see what you have available. I often feel like we don't actually think of the fact that someone is covering the cost for our flight and accommodation. This is free everything for you to literally take advantage of. So I think definitely do your research in terms of boutiques and buyers that you feel would fit in to the various spaces that you visit. And then afterwards, definitely follow up with the people that you connect with out there. Send your catalogs, lookbooks. Don't let people forget you. Especially in those environments where there's so many people, you're engaging with a lot of people, it's easy to be forgotten, but the people that follow up afterwards come first to mind. And even during, funny enough, even when you're there, try and discover new spaces where your product could fit, new networks. You need to be willing to put yourself out there. And oftentimes creatives are quite introverted. From what I've noticed specifically with our creative DNA cohort. But I think it's really important for us to sort of groom ourselves in the area of speaking, interacting, networking, because then ultimately your network is your net worth, as they say, or your net worth is your network, the other way around. So yeah, that's the advice that I would give.
Thank you, Danai. I really love that. And one of the fashion designers in the Creative DNA program said, don't eke yourself into poverty. When you think, oh my God, I can't post again. I'm embarrassed to post. And she said, you'll do that into poverty. So Danai, you're very right. We need to put ourselves out there. Rasheeda?
Thank you. Yes, I agree about, the pre-work is critical ahead of any showcase opportunity. And you can really see the difference of designers who run with residencies and showcasing opportunities. And that's what you want when you have to make difficult decisions around choosing between applications and one designer over another. It's the designers who come ready with anticipating this opportunity and how that could catalyze things for them. Somebody like Henry Oduku, who organized his own pop-up in London, while we were doing Africa Fashion Week London. That's so proactive. And it's added value on top of the investment that a British Council Creative DNA grant is supporting his arrival into Showcase. And I think that seeing that kind of work, essentially also we want collaboration with designers. Designers are the most important stakeholders that we have. You are partners for our program. And I think taking yourself seriously in that way also makes the difference of leadership. So we spend a lot of time on the Creative DNA program. And Silvia, to your credit, I think we've really defined the identity of what our curriculum is as a program that particularly places emphasis on the brand identity, the creative DNA, and refining that as an and that is like, if not a lifelong journey for designers to check in on their brand, but how important it is to own it and to actually therefore be able to add value when opportunities come through is quite a critical difference between a designer who's ready for an opportunity and one who isn't. So I think, that pre-work, price points, critical, the brand identity, being open for meeting the market and taking the initiative to do the research on where you see the opportunity and being open for collaboration is really key. This is a great opportunity to meet designers who you can be in a room with where you might not usually. And I love the organicness that can sometimes happen through some of the showcasing that we've done, where Yvonne Schwander collaborated with Henry Aduku and they went down the runway at Africa Fashion Week London. And that's because they had also connected from a previous showcase opportunity at Creative Economy Week Zimbabwe. And so that wasn't a given that we had already premeditated before we got to Africa Fashion Week London last year, but they came to the program with that collaboration in mind. And my God, it worked so well. I really think that what would we have done if we hadn't sent Yvonne Schwander's jewelry collection down the runway, unless it was on Henry Aduku? It was such a perfect pairing and it accentuated both of their brands beautifully. So I think designers who are ready to meet each other fully and openly in that way are really ready for collaboration and international opportunities and understanding what exchange can do to build their businesses.
Can I quickly come in there, following on what you've just said, Rasheeda, about collaborating? There's a project I worked on a few years ago with a group of artisans from Papua New Guinea, Peru, Palestine, India, Ethiopia, and Mongolia. And who would have known that the Mongolian artisans would have had a link with the Ethiopian artisans, because they both weave and spin yarn in the same way. And we ended up taking this group of Mongolian artisans to Ethiopia, and together they created new fabrics within 5 days. And those cultures are so different. So collaborating together and actually seeing what the parameters are and just working outside of the box is really, really important.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions. I see. Thank you for correcting me. The people who are in the Creative DNA program, Sanara Nairobi, don't cringe yourself into poverty. That was a statement by Sharon Wendell of Epica Jewelry, who was alumni of Creative DNA. She was part of our very first cohort. So thank you so much for that. I just have Michelle, you're asking, please do share how we connect with the panel afterwards. I think I'll post it in the group, but I think the best way would be LinkedIn, I believe. Rasheeda, Danai, and Dr. Avis.
Yes, LinkedIn. If you're not already also following all of the East Africa Arts, Southern Africa Arts, Nigeria Arts Instagrams, LinkedIn is where you can also find me.
Danai and Dr. Avis.
You can find me across all social media platforms at House of Stone _showroom. House spelled HAUS.
LinkedIn.
Dr. Avis Charles, I believe.
Dr. Avis Ellis-Charles or Avis Health Associates, either.
Yeah. Great, thank you. And then Expert COO says, yes, you're right. Underpricing is often an issue. Identify your real competitors. Competitor is not only about comparing yourself to emerging designers, as their pricing can be broken. So please compare yourself to established brands. Thank you. And then Stephen Kasozi. I'm Stephen, a fashion designer from Uganda. Grateful to be here. My question is, are there scouting programs that discover new emerging designers in Uganda to test their creativity and potential to showcase their talents and potential? I major in streetwear, especially jackets, but working around with local fabrics like Kikoi, and would like to network and connect more in such spaces. Does Creative DNA allow male designers to? Yes, absolutely. I know the panel today is made up of women, but the ones coming up are we have some very strong designers in the program, but I'll let Rasheeda answer that question.
Yes, and while our Creative DNA program with Bold in Africa in Uganda has been focused on female designers, we've always engaged with further male designers through our Creative Showcase program. And that quarterly opportunity to meet the market through pop-ups has become an integral part of our creative offer across the region, where making money, sales, and then consolidating your brand within that, because it's also important to recognize it's not just continual pop-up, but how does, like, each pop-up that we've done has been an interesting iteration of, let's take the feedback around your pricing points and what learning can we get from that. And so for Michael, who's interested in engaging with the British Council's Creative Showcase program, would be a first point of call, and connecting to Bold in Africa more generally as a brilliant Uganda-based partner with a lot of fashion expertise, and entrepreneurship expertise, which is not just limited to those in fashion, would be a first point of recommendation.
Thank you, Rasheeda. Also say expert CEO. I don't know your name, but thank you so much for your comments here. Dana is 100% right. One call or one email is not enough. If you have targeted the right boutique, stay in touch with them. However, please do not only focus on selling, bring them value. I completely agree. Always bring value. Naomi Mutai, thank you. Don't cringe yourself into poverty. And Naomi, I believe you have a fashion magazine that you just launched. So if you can put in the group as well, would be happy to share it. Mark, don't cringe yourself to poverty. I'm just trying to read this. As creatives, we have to learn to be our brand CMOs, chief marketing officers, as we are the ones who can best articulate our brand vision. Completely agree. Lorraine, Mari, yes, nice to see you here. And then Michael, really good to see you here. We met Michael at Africa Fashion Week London. Africa Fashion Week London is a gift that keeps on giving. So from Creative Resilience International, UK-wide producer of the Kenya UK season, it was a great honor to support the CDNA program in curating and producing the side events at the Africa Centre, the UK delivery partner for the UK Kenya season, and also brilliant support in co-producing the Brilliant Showcase at Africa Fashion Week London. Michael, I'm so happy that you've joined us. Michael runs the Africa Centre. If you search on Instagram, Africa Centre, UK, really fantastic space for creatives. And we did hold a Creative DNA pop-up shop there. So if you're ever in the UK, of course, it's a British Council, so we promote the UK more than anywhere else. So if you're ever in the UK, please reach out to Michael at the Africa Centre. Maybe, Michael, you can post the exact Instagram handle, so that people can reach you. And really nice to see you. I've also posted all the social media handles because we're always posting opportunities for young creatives. And then another very important connect is Fashion Scout. They were part of the original team that set up Creative DNA, and are now the delivery partners for Ethiopia and Zimbabwe. So a lot of knowledge when it comes to London Fashion Week, when it comes to selling in Europe, but also a lot of local knowledge in Sub-Saharan Africa. Ojulnu, peace and blessings. Ojuinu, I hope I'm saying the right name. Greetings, beautiful minds, a rare couturist, cotton farmer from Nigeria. Keep up the good work. And I'm really happy to see a cotton farmer here because you know how vast the fashion ecosystem is. So I really would love to hear more on Africa cotton, especially on Ashoke. I hope I'm saying that right. Kente, Adire, tie and dye. And then Robson, nice to be here. I'm a fashion photographer, Robertson Kala, based in London. How do you see the role of imagery evolving over the next few years, and how can designers and photographers innovate together? Should I direct that question to Dr. Avis or Danai? So I'll repeat that. How do you see the role of imagery evolving over the next few years, and how can designers and photographers innovate together? That's Robertson Kala from London. So Dr. Avis, maybe make a note on that, and Danai as well. We'll get to that. Julia, and my brand is called Multiculture. I have a question. How can an upcoming designer impact the society without knowing much of the brand and losing their identity? So this is a social impact question. How can an upcoming designer impact the society without, I guess, knowing much of the brand and losing the identity? Maybe Rasheeda, you can answer that question. I'm not sure about the knowing part. Julia, if you want to clarify that. Yeah, we can start with Dr. Avis on the collaboration between photography and Danai as well, because you really talk about storytelling, and then Rasheeda, you can answer the question on social impact.
Photography is important, imagery is important. And I think doing your imagery where you are is extremely important because it says a lot about you. It also says a lot about the clothes as well. So being able to take them in the place where you are, or have something that links in with the brand itself, or the cultural identity or the history of the brand or of the country, is really important, because that way you're actually giving back to where you actually started from. You're also giving the public a view that they probably wouldn't see. And you mentioned, Silvia, as did Danai, the way that the continent is seen, each of your countries. And it's exactly the same in regards to Jamaica. Everybody thinks it's just red, gold and green. And so obviously there are other things. So it's up to you as photographers and creatives to make sure that that is seen, that our countries are a lot more than just places for holiday, and that our designs, our fabrics, our weaving and everything that we do is included within that kind of imagery that you're taking.
Thank you, Dr. Avis. Danai?
So my input when it comes to the future of photography, I think because of the advent of AI right now, I do see a pattern where photography is going to have a huge decline, to be very honest. But then they're going to somewhat become like artisans, where photographers that really know how to use the original camera, the digital tools, I don't know what they refer to as, will soon become a fine art at some point. But I think in the immediate, there is going to be somewhat of a decline. The photographers are going to have to prepare for that decline as people lean towards AI and AI tools for some of their visuals, because it's already, you can see a lot of designers already are engaging with AI to sort of tell their stories. So this means either photographers also upskill themselves in understanding AI, get ready for that decline because it is going to happen. But know that when you do have an artisanal school and you can understand how a camera works, an original camera works, soon enough you'll become like an artisan where it's a lost art and you'll be milking it if you really know how to use an original camera still. I feel AI definitely is a trend. And I think it's going to affect a lot of industries, not just the photography industry, but also the graphic design industry, where a lot of people are going to shift towards AI. We won't need Photoshop and those sort of digital tools anymore. But I think these conversations are interesting because it's not about just selling an idea that everything is a bed of roses, but it's also preparing us for what the future is going to look like and for us to actually adjust and adapt. And that's a huge part of creativity, is that shifts come. Are you going to be able to perceive these shifts that are coming and adapt accordingly so that you're not left behind? So that would be my response to that. Whether I am really good at predicting and I can foresee the future, time will tell. But my intuition does tell me that there will be a season of decline for photographers, graphic designers, because of the advent of AI and how accessible it is now and how a lot more people now know how to use it. Even my mother knows how to use it. She made a flyer the other day. I just have to share that. I was impressed with the flyer. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Rasheeda, I want to comment on everything, but then we're running out of time. So Rasheeda, so thank you, Danai and Dr. Avis on the importance of photography. Rasheeda, if you could speak briefly about social impact.
Yeah, and I think I did want to offer a follow-up thought on just the importance of photography for storytelling, particularly from our continent. And I think that opportunity that it holds, and I'm thinking particularly of the beautiful visual images that were produced from Natal as part of the CDNA Africa Fashion Week London commission that we worked with them on last year, and the accompanying editorial. So it's almost like photography is stepping up its game in a hyper environment where I know that AI and its attention is limited, but I think there is always still space for, in fashion, I mean, is it obviously an image-led art form? So just the opportunity of ensuring as a designer that you're thinking through the narrative that you want to tell with that photography will always still shine through. And moving on to then thinking about social impact, I think it's the same kind of answer for a question around, if you're a designer wanting to have social impact, taking some time to think critically about what you are doing and wanting to offer to the world. A brilliant designer that I always think about as a business and wonderful storyteller is Buziga Hill from Uganda, where I really think Bobby Kalade sat down and thought about how he wanted to tell a different story about the secondhand waste within Uganda's fashion ecosystem, and how he's been able to create a globally competitive brand through that, and has socially impacted on, built a whole staff team of over 30 within a very short amount of time in terms of growth. And it's not easy just establishing a brand, as we know from the beginning, and having that social impact purpose at the core is really, I think, where a lot of brands are intentionally, that is their core, actually. And for a lot of designers from this continent, it's very connected to the stories that they want to tell, the communities they want to shine a spotlight on, the way, the manufacturing that their processes are engaging with, that tells the story of a specific particularity of place, time. And I think then being able to package that is what a global market is hungry for. So I hope that helps answer the question around thinking about social impact.
Thank you. And I remember for Creative DNA, the very first cohort, we launched and then COVID hit, and we had a lot of our designers who collaborated to develop very stylish face masks, and I think part of that went back to the community of women who had lost jobs from doing that would previously depending on daily wages, and because of COVID they couldn't do that. So I think Gentile was one of the fashion designers, and Vintara that collaborated, and part of the proceeds went back to the community. So I think there's very many ways to look at social impact as a fashion designer. So we have very many questions, but then please send them through, and hopefully our panel will be able to address them, maybe on their personal social media pages. But also please get in touch and send them these questions directly. But then I just want to give a major shout out. So on the Adire Kente question, Anne-Marie from Africa Fashion Week London, she says, please get in touch. Africa Fashion Week London has a sister company in Nigeria, the Adire Udua Textile Hub. we'd love to talk as we go through so much cotton. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. And Anne-Marie is the one of the brilliant brains behind making Africa Fashion Week London a success. So Anne-Marie, please also post on the chat box your contact details so that fashion designers can reach you. Michael, thank you for posting the Creative Resilience International. Terry, thank you so much. We also met at Africa Fashion Week London. And what do you have in mind when you say brand is equals to yours action? Define impact. You may have a passion, mission, purpose. Use this possible route. Fix a problem people have. Help us achieve our dream. Align it on your brand DNA. Thank you so much, Terry. And also Terry has posted his contact details for the Global Fashion Management in the UK. So please take note of that and reach out. And then I'm Teresa Mwangi. My brand is called Bamboo Art and Design Studio. Instagram, Bamboo Kenya. I make bamboo bags with leather and fabric. And I'd like to approach the market fit approach in your experience with eco-conscious markets. Which customer segments should I try? I'll also ask you to reach out to Danai directly. She's a fashion designer who's been in the sustainable space for a while. And I think you have successfully sold locally and internationally. So I think you'll be able to answer that question. Julia, thank you for clarifying the question. I believe Rasheeda has answered. Michelle from Zimbabwe, as an emerging small brand, I'm looking to expand more and sharpen on my storytelling. I kind of felt I wasn't well polished enough to partake in the upcoming CDNA fashion program cohort Zimbabwe, but I'm incredibly encouraged to hear that CDNA is standing in the gap for all brand stories. Are there incubator programs specifically curated to help designers define their voice story if my brand can't partake in the fashion program yet? Danai, I'll let you answer that question. Please direct this question directly to Danai. You can find her on social media. And also, I tell a lot of storytellers now, there are so many AI apps that can help with storytelling. I think before we literally had to learn a different language to be able to tell our story in a different language. But now with all the AI apps out there, I think AI tools, I think that's really helpful. And Mark, if there's still a chance to apply, I'd advise you to apply. Okay, thank you. And always give it a shot. I say, even if you feel unprepared, that's the whole point of Creative DNA, to make you prepared, to tell your story, to represent your brand, and help you really streamline your brand DNA. So please always prepare. Hello, I'm Julia, and my brand is called Multiculture. I have a question. How can an upcoming designer impact the society without knowing much of the brand? Okay, Julia, yes, that question has been answered. Treasy, okay, Terry, I see you're responding to Treasy. Thank you so much. Are there funders here in London that can fund a fashion business? So just before Rasheeda and Dr. Avis answer those questions, we have so many opportunities at the British Council. I've posted all the pages. They're local pages, as you see here. There'll be one focused on West Africa, Southern Africa, Ethiopia, British Council as a general, British Arts, East Africa Arts for East Africa. We post opportunities all the time, so make sure to follow and then ensure that you actually do apply for those opportunities. So I'll let Rasheeda or Dr. Avis answer that last question before we wrap up.
Is this the question on funders? I also want to know if there are. I mean, it's an open question. Are there funders out there who want to fund fashion businesses? We're in the business of gathering partners. Anybody? I mean, it's a great question, but I think it's also about what kind. I mean, it's not just about, as we know. I mean, a question that's asking about funding, but it's not just about the money for any enterprise. And actually, financing might not be what you need right now as a business. And so I also have a lot of conversations about what kind of investment does a business need when is really critical to support thinking about growth and sustainability, and being very conscious about, you know, every opportunity for professional development, and funding might not be actually what we need. So I think also that kind of caveat, as much as we're in the game of convening partners for financing.
Danai, I see you have your hand up. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I do. Actually, now that we're on the subject matter of investment, We're planning for Creative Economy Week Zimbabwe, which is taking place in March. And I think one of our sessions is actually looking at investment readiness, because a lot of creators actually are looking for funding. But as Rasheeda said, are you actually ready? So what does that actually look like? What are the elements and the components that you need to consider to actually be investment ready? Oftentimes when people are looking for investors, they themselves are not even ready for the opportunity. So I would say if you are in Harare, Zimbabwe, that you should look out for that. We're actually trying to have several engagements, public ones, that sort of help our creatives to sort of understand or at least grow in their financial literacy and preparedness when it comes to investment. So if you do follow our House of Stone showroom page, we'll be posting flyers as to when those actual activities will be taking place. And if that's an area that you wish to sort of upskill yourself in, do connect.
Thank you so much. This is such an interesting conversation. If it was up to me, we'd go on the entire afternoon. But unfortunately, we have to stop here. I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody who's joined. And I think this is a very special session because I see so many potential partners who have joined us. We have Fashion Scout on the call. We have Global Fashion Management. We have the Creative Resilience Hub. We have Africa Fashion Week London. So thank you so much. And the Creative DNA program is expanding. Currently, we're running it in Kenya. We have the Creative DNA Sanara program that we're taking to 6 counties. We've just completed Nairobi, but we're going to Nakuru, Kakamega, Kisumu, Mombasa, and Turkana. So please be on the lookout at the East Africa Arts page. Danai has also mentioned that they're just about to launch CDNA, the next cohort of CDNA Zimbabwe in partnership with Fashion Scout. So please follow the Southern Africa Arts page. And then we also have Ghana coming up next, I believe, Ghana and Rwanda. So please be on the lookout, follow those pages so that you can join. It's a really life-changing program. I see a lot of alumni here and I'm really excited to see all of you here. Thank you for joining. We also have Creative DNA Malawi currently running. I think they've just wrapped up and hopefully they'll have a second cohort, and Uganda as well. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been really amazing. If you want to see the recording, I think we are live on Facebook on the Trio Media and British Council pages, and we will post it after we're done. But I'd like to say a big thank you for joining us. Please be on the lookout for the next 4 Fashion Friday conversations, and also be on the lookout for the Creative DNA alumni database, just so that you can see all these brilliant over 300 fashion designers across Sub-Saharan Africa and the UK that will be hosted on the database. So thank you very much, and I wish you a lovely weekend and a happy Friday.